Welcome to this explainer. You know what? We're going to just skip the usual intro stuff today because we are diving headfirst into a story that literally reshaped global culture. We're looking directly at Paulo Coelho's defining masterpiece, The Alchemist. In this explainer, we're going to break down the whole phenomenon, unpack its core philosophy, and then see exactly how that philosophy plays out in practice.
Okay, let's dive into this. For millions of people, a simple visual like a solitary structure shrouded in mist, it represents a profound personal awakening. We're exploring this source today because it's not just a book, it's a cultural touchstone that completely defied all the odds. Paulo Coelho himself actually recalls struggling against voices telling him his path was impossible, yet this very text proved them all completely wrong.
So just to give you a sense of the sheer scale here, we're talking 20 million. That is more than 20 million copies sold worldwide. That's enough to fill thousands of libraries. When a text reaches this level, it crosses over from mere literature into a shared global experience. Literally everyone was reading it. The author recounts getting calls that President Bill Clinton was photographed carrying it and seeing Julia Roberts in Vanity Fair declaring her absolute adoration for it. It became a universal language.
And here's something that brilliantly illustrates that massive cross-cultural appeal. 56. This text was translated into 56 different languages. Think about that for a second. A story born in the mind of a struggling Brazilian writer resonated so deeply that it had to be adapted for dozens of distinct cultures, crossing borders, oceans, and linguistic barriers like it was nothing. Now, what's really interesting is how the American publisher over at HarperCollins perfectly captured that raw, magical feeling of a phenomenon. They sent a letter directly to Coelho saying, "Reading The Alchemist was like getting up at dawn and seeing the sunrise while the rest of the world still slept." I mean, wow. That just perfectly encapsulates the magical, almost secret awakening that readers experienced. It felt like discovering a profound truth before anyone else woke up. So you might be wondering, why did it resonate with so many millions of people? Well, it all really comes down to a single powerful concept that Coelho lays out right in his introduction.
So the crucial point is this idea of the personal calling. Coelho defines this as God's blessing, the specific path chosen for you here on earth. He notes that we know we're following our legend whenever you do something that fills us with genuine, undeniable enthusiasm. I want you to reflect on that for a second. What activities in your own life actually fill you with that kind of deep enthusiasm? That, according to this text, is your personal calling, right? But if it's that simple, why aren't we all just doing it out of the gate? Well, Coelho directly challenges us here. He breaks down 4 specific hurdles that basically bury our dreams. First is childhood conditioning, being told from a young age that what we want is impossible. Second is love. We often fear abandoning our loved ones to pursue a dream, even though Coelho argues love should actually be a driving force, not an anchor. Third is the fear of defeat, the absolute terror of failing at the one thing we truly care about. And finally, the fourth and most insidious obstacle, the fear of success.
Let's lean into that fourth one for a second because self-sabotage is just fascinating. Coelho borrows this incredibly heavy quote from Oscar Wilde: "Each man kills the thing he loves." The author explains that the mere possibility of actually getting what we want can fill us with intense guilt. We look around at friends or family who haven't achieved their dreams, and suddenly we feel this profound sense of unworthiness. It is absolutely the most dangerous obstacle because people will stop right at the finish line, committing a series of crazy mistakes just to avoid realizing the dream they fought their whole lives for.
Let's move on and see how this builds. Actually, before the main story even kicks off, Coelho establishes this whole philosophy through some beautiful magical realism in a very unique prologue. He retells the classic Greek myth of Narcissus, the boy who was so completely obsessed with himself that he fell into a lake and drowned while staring at his own reflection.
So when Narcissus dies, the goddesses of the forest arrive and find this freshwater lake transformed into a lake of salty tears. They ask the lake why it weeps, assuming, that it's mourning the loss of the boy's incredible beauty. And then the lake asks a question that literally stops the goddesses in their tracks. But was Narcissus beautiful? The goddesses are just stunned in wonder. I mean, who would know better than the lake?
And then the lake delivers this just incredible response. "I weep for Narcissus, but I never noticed that Narcissus was beautiful. I weep because each time he knelt beside my banks, I could see, in the depths of his eyes, my own beauty reflected." It's this unexpected, almost vain punchline to the fable, right? But look at what it represents.
It brilliantly illustrates the theme of finding one's own reflection, one's own purpose in the world around us.
Okay, so now we take all that high-level philosophy about the personal calling and the search for oneself, and we bring it right down to earth into practice. Enter our protagonist, a relatable, wandering young guy named Santiago. The narrative officially kicks off right here in the rolling Andalusian countryside. Picture this. As dusk falls, Santiago arrives with his herd of sheep looking for a place to crash. He settles into an abandoned church, a church where the roof has caved in and this enormous sycamore tree has grown right where the sacristy used to be. It's a really powerful mental image of nature reclaiming human structures, perfectly setting the stage for a young man who is stripping away his own societal expectations. Notice this stark contrast here between these two visions. Remember that first obstacle we talked about, childhood conditioning? Yeah, we see Santiago confront this absolutely head-on. His parents had a very clear, safe vision for him. Go to the seminary, become a priest, stay put, and bring pride to their simple farm family. But Santiago's vision? Radically different. He wanted to be a shepherd, travel the world, meet different women, and see castles. He deeply, deeply desired to explore the unknown. Choosing his vision over his parents required immense courage. And he actually took the leap. No, really. He made these incredibly decisive moves to rebel against all those expectations. He left the seminary, but instead of getting angry, his father actually gave him 3 ancient Spanish gold coins and a blessing. The text reveals that Santiago saw in his father's gaze a buried, hidden desire to travel the world too, a dream weighed down by the struggles of a really hard life. So, armed with those coins and propelled by his dad's blessing, Santiago bought a flock of sheep and dedicated his life to travel, waking up every single day able to live out his dream. But as idyllic as all that wandering sounds, it's barely the beginning. We start to feel this really subtle tension building up as we approach the inciting incident of the story. While sleeping in that abandoned church with the giant sycamore tree, Santiago has a recurring dream. And it's a dream that always ends right before the climax. Driven by this desperate need to figure out what it means, he journeys to the town of Tarifa to seek out an old gypsy woman who interprets dreams. At first, Santiago is totally terrified of her. He's gripped by these childhood fears that gypsies kidnap people. He's nervous. His hands are literally shaking. But she takes his hands and tells him this incredibly profound truth. And dreams are the language of God. She explains that when God speaks in the language of the soul, only the dreamer can truly understand it, but she can try to interpret it. She powerfully connects the subconscious stirrings of our minds directly to the divine. So, Santiago finally spills the beans. He reveals the content of this unfinished dream. He tells the gypsy woman that in his dream, a child is playing with his sheep. The child plays for a while without frightening the animals, and then, suddenly, the child takes Santiago by both hands and physically transports him to the Egyptian pyramids. And, right as he is about to see what the child wants to show him, he wakes up. Every single time. Coelho leaves us hanging right on this exact suspenseful cliffhanger. Which brings us to the ultimate question, doesn't it? What actually awaits Santiago at the Egyptian pyramids? And more importantly, tying this right back to Coelho's foundational philosophy of the 4 obstacles, will a simple shepherd boy have the courage to overcome conditioning, love, and the devastating fear of success to actually get there? His journey to uncover his personal calling has only just begun. I highly encourage you to read on to find out what happens next. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and hey, keep seeking your own legend.